coming to terms with the fact that I've probably already peaked physically. So I would say that I physically peaked actually twice in recent years. Right now I'm 27, and in my early 20s, I really do think that I peaked. And those exact times, I would say, was whenever I was around 22 to 23, and then last year at age 26. And the reason why I'm mentioning those details is because I've noticed a trend, which is that I'm either slightly smaller or slightly the same every year where I sort of peak physically. Also, I wanted to say that I'm doing a bulk right now, and I will say the results are not very good. Even though I'm like at a super light body weight, the progress is not very good. And I'm doing everything right, lifting 3 days a week. And now I've switched the hypertrophy range. I'm lifting in the 6 to 12 rep range on compounds especially. And I'm using better form. I just don't see the progress that I want. And it's made me sort of sit back and kind of, be honest with myself, which is that, I probably don't have much more on the table for me when it comes to, reaching my genetic potential and my own natural limit. Because I think the term natural limit, I think it gets thrown around a lot of times and not used correctly. So the natural limit is dependent on you and your own genetics. Most people are not going to be able to hit the natural limit of, 26 or 27? Most people are not going to be able to hit that. And in fact, like Scooby 1961, who I will say I have questions about his natural status, even though now he's actually on hormone therapy. I think he is an example of why, you have to sort of adjust that number, because even someone like him with good genetics, he only reached like 24. So I would say for most people, you should aim for 18. Between 18 and 20, tops. In fact, Nick from Nick's Strength and Power has an FFMI of about 18. I think he is one of those people. He's one of those people. I think he's like the most accurate representation of what natural fitness and the journey looks like. As someone who's a lifetime natural, and sort of what it actually looks like to lift naturally. Because he cuts down to like 140, and he's 5'9", but I mean he cuts down to only 140, and when he cuts down to 140, like he looks like a stick. He still looks good. He looks better than me, but he looks like he's like malnourished. So, concerning all this information, I'll say it's probably true that if I'm lucky, I'll probably reach that same sort of status that I had in previous years. But if not, I'm either going to be like the same as I was kind of last year, or like maybe a tiny bit smaller. And then from then on, I'm just going to work the best that I can to just maintain my level of physical fitness, just the best that I can, which, may or may not happen. I may actually start to lose muscle over years, which I hope doesn't happen. But it does appear, at least to me, according to the research, that you don't normally start losing muscle until closer to 50. And if you are still physically active, you can normally sort of even postpone that time period. So I got to make sure that I'm continuing this regimen and I'm strict with it. And on a side note, I will say like some pieces of advice that I've sort of learned over the years is that as you get older, you can't get away with, more sort of a dietary sort of sins, if you want to call them that. For example, like eating added sugar. Yesterday, I only had 5 grams of added sugar compared to 4 the day before. And I will say I feel worlds differently. And I feel worse. It's like I've seen a negative effect on my body compared to when I was eating only 1 gram difference the day before. So stuff like that, you just can't get away with it anymore. If I were to compare my diet to whenever I was like 19 to age like 24, it's like insanely different. I mean, I was eating way more than a couple grams of added sugar per day. I was eating at least like close to 100 grams of added sugar a day, and caffeine and processed food. But my physique was even bigger back then. You say, how is that possible? Well, that's because the body just can't process. The body can't continue to take a beating more and more and more over time. And it's just less tolerant of certain things. It's less tolerant of poison as time progresses. This year, I think I did okay with my diet. I didn't do no added sugar. Last year, I did pretty much, I wouldn't say exactly 0, but less than 1 gram of added sugar per day. This year, I kind of did like around 5. So that's something that I can try to attempt to do to try to reach my physical peak again. And I think I can get there. But back on track to sort of what I made this video to be about, is that, I think that people have to at some point humble themselves in their fitness journey and sort of come to terms that they're not going to be as big as they want. I, at one point, wanted to be like close to 200 pounds, believe it or not, but 200 pounds lean and maybe not exactly like shredded, maybe not even that lean, maybe not even like 10 to 15% body fat. But I wanted to be 200 pounds, have a flat stomach, but also, be muscular and large. However, at my height, and on top of that, throw my bone structure into the equation, it's a genetic impossibility. And even according to FFMI, it's an impossibility. If I typed in on the FFMI calculator right now, my height around 5'4", 200 pounds, let's say 20% body fat, it would be like 30. It would be way in the unattainable zone. Now, if I switch it down to like 150, that's a little more attainable, but that's even with decent genetics. And for people who are unaware, the way that you kind of gauge your genetics is, bad genetics is going to be smaller, good genetics is going to be bigger. That's basically how you determine if you have good genetics or not. If you're somebody who can like sort of just like glide up in body weight without really seeing a lot of body fat gain, you probably have good genetics. If you have to like cut down and cut down and cut down just to see your abs and just to see like some kind of arm separation, then yeah, you have terrible genetics. If you bulk up and like you're already approaching like 160 or even 200 pounds and you got like some big sausage arms, yeah, you don't have good genetics. You have terrible genetics. If you're walking around looking like the Michelin Man when you bulk up, and then in the summer when you finally cut down, you look like freaking Gumby, yeah. You don't have the best genetics. And I will say also, sometimes I don't always follow the best advice. I don't always practice the best habits when it comes to dieting, because I tend to be extreme. But even then, you know, considering the fact I've been training so long, you know, I still like think that even, you know, even though my genetics are like part of the equation, I still think that, you know, I would have had better gains, at least by this point, even though I'm doing a lot of things wrong, right? Because what does Jason Blaha say? He says that even if you're doing quote unquote the wrong thing, wrong diet, wrong training program, you can still make gains. It's going to take you half the amount of time. So, you know, maybe it would have only taken me 7 years to get to now if I had done everything right. So, but we'll see. So anyways, long story short, sometimes you gotta take an L. Sometimes you gotta humble yourself and live in reality, live in the real world.